I was just trying to heat that baby up a little. Hey everybody, it's Vadim, and today's episode is sponsored by Budweiser, because where there's Budweiser, there's liberty. Anyhow, today folks, we're going to be talking about the Jeff Bezos has way too much goddamn money. What is wrong with the universe? Reality is broken. Amazon Prime series, The Boys. So yes, that does mean you're going to have to get ready for... Just had to get that out there. Now, The Boys is many things. It's a cynical deconstruction of superheroes in practically every superhero universe in general, an exploration of the dark side of consumerism, celebrity, and celebrity worship. And of course, it's also a face-ripping, baby laser-shooting, head-exploding, heat vision crowd bifurcating, ass-bomb detonating, kinda rapey guy who kidnaps a dolphin that goes crashing through his windshield to the Spice Girls in slow motioning. Yes, it's all those things. And hey! But more than anything, first and foremost, it's probably more than any other superhero-related entertainment I've ever read or seen. It's an exploration of the dangers of American exceptionalism. And so I guess that means we need to talk about... that right there.
American exceptionalism has been at the center of our nation's experience for nearly 400 years.
We don't just love America, we're in love with America.
If there's one core belief that has guided and inspired me every step of the way, it is this: the United States is an exceptional nation.
So although a whole bunch of historical figures from Thomas Paine, Jefferson, Lincoln, Alex de Tocqueville, and John Winthrop are generally credited with laying out what would one day become the bedrocks of American exceptionalist philosophy, for instance, this Winthrop sermon,
"We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us."
And that, of course, inspired Ronald Reagan's oft-cited
Shining city upon a hill.
speech, in which he emphasized the need to
Implicitly reinforce the idea that America is special.
But he was also very careful to warn of
An erosion of the American spirit.
and that just really slapped that idea into American politics. But none of these people originated the term. It was actually coined by that beloved paradigm of American patriotism, Joseph Stalin. When he spoke of the heresy of American exceptionalism. This is my Stalin voice. The term was in fact a popular means to ridicule the U.S. For instance, in response to the Great Depression, S. Milgram said that
exceptionalism was a disease, a chronic disease.
And that
the storm of economic crisis in the United States blew down the house of cards of American exceptionalism
at the 1930 American Communist Convention. But hey, commies be damned, this country loves a catchy term, and today it's as American as barbecue, beer, and freedom. After Reagan's speech, it nudged its way into the vernacular, appearing in national publications 457 times, was mentioned 2,248 times the decade after, and then just from 2010 to 2012, 4,152 times. At first it was a rallying cry for conservatives, but liberals quickly hopped the on that bandwagon.
But I believe America is exceptional.
We're exceptional because we do exceptional things.
America is exceptional.
And then, of course, Republicans used it as a bludgeoning tool to tear them down.
This president does not believe in American exceptionalism.
The left, on the other hand, sees America as morally inferior.
Those who have spent a lifetime singing from the globalist hymnal are now suddenly American exceptionalists.
But what does it mean? The answer is who the fuck knows. And by that, I just mean there's a whole set of contrasting ideas on that. Generally, though, it fits into the ideas that correspond to one or more of the following. Our supposedly unique concept of common law, the idea that we've been genuinely exceptional within international affairs. Okay. Free market capitalism, freedom of religion, the sanctity of private property, that the US is uniquely committed to liberty, all these reasons that I don't have time to mention, to even the notion that we're so phenomenal that we're above or an exception to the law, specifically international law and the law of nations. And then if you add what religious nutbags have to say, it can mean everything from America was chosen to be exceptional by God, to the notion that America holds an exceptional role in ushering in the second coming of Jesus Christ. Dick Cheney wrote a book about it. Newt Gingrich made a doc about it with his freakish hair helmet wife. And it's been the part of the Republican platform since 2012. Now, we're not going to get into the myriad of statistical metrics that kind of disprove this idea that America is exceptional outside of this data dump that you see on the screen before you, but I would like to add that Noam Chomsky notes that
there's a couple of things wrong with the concept of American exceptionalism. The one is the facts. The other is every great power has had the same exceptionalism. Britain, when it was virtually genocidal all over the world, was praising itself on its magnificence.
The Stalinist Russia prided itself on its advancing the cause of human civilization. Same with Hitler. Hitler was going to bring an earthly paradise to Germany with its advanced culture and advanced technology.
And more importantly for this video, that
we should also remember that there's a secular religion which is even more devastating, and that's things like the concept of American exceptionalism.
Hey man, want a fresca?
So finally, I'd like to add one very strange anomaly in all of this. Of all people, Donald Trump was kind of against it.
Okay, well, I don't like the term, I'll be honest with you. You know, I don't think it's a very nice term. We're exceptional, you're not.
And people inexplicably give him a lot of credit for this. I don't see why. His reasoning was a little odd.
First of all, Germany's eating our lunch. I don't like the term because we're dealing, first of all, I want to take everything back from the world that we've given them. We've given them so much.
So it really kind of seems like he thinks we aren't exceptional because of our generosity. We just need to take it all back, presumably starting with that lunch we gave Germany.
By the way, you've been eating our lunch for the last 20 years, but we're more exceptional than you. I don't like the term.
I stand corrected, 20 years worth of lunches. But here's the kicker about Mr.
I never liked the term.
Not only was teaching American exceptionalism part of only 2 campaign promises he made in regards to education in 2020, but yeah, he said this in the documentary Newt Gingrich made with his hair helmet wife in 2011.
American exceptionalism is really a great term, and it is something that is very special to us. And by the way, we have to be very, very careful to protect it and cherish it because it can also disappear.
No, maybe I'm stupid. Am I stupid, Eve?
Ow. And there you go. Thus concludes this crash course in American exceptionalism.
Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American. Whew.
So, although The Boys is pretty weird, very, 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 very weird, it's a lot more similar to our own world in that the world is horrible.
No more masks! I'll tell you another reason I hate masks. Most child molesters love them.
And superheroes are exactly what they probably would be in real life. Horrible. You know, there's psychopathic narcissists who get easily ticked off by babies, or they indiscriminately murder innocent bystanders because they're hopped up on superhero crack, or they're creepy predatory sex perverts.
I'll just go.
Or all 3. Anyhow, here's everything you need to know if you've never watched The Boys, or as they say in France, les garçons. Now, superheroes, soups, or as Billy Butcher would say,
suit cunts,
are produced, controlled, and owned by Vought International, a shadowy multi-billion-dollar industry that's kind of a mixture of Halliburton, Pfizer, and Hollywood. Vought is seeking to privatize our armed forces by introducing soups into them.
We need more soup!
Vought has its hands in nearly every industry.
Movie tickets, merchandising, theme parks, video games.
Vaught is so massive that it's kind of like that Network Ned Beatty scene.
There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon.
Except all there is Vaught and Vaught and Vaught and Vaught. Vaught. And finally, they've been deceiving the public into thinking superheroes are chosen by God, but in fact they're manufactured by a formula known as Compound V, which is recreationally used by supes, like I mentioned before, as superhero crack. So with that being said, we're going to discuss all different kinds of ways. King of beers. So with that being said, we're going to discuss all different kinds of ways that Amex manifests itself throughout the series, exploring the American exceptionalism experience of 5 key characters: Homelander, Starlight, Kimiko, Stormfront, and Love Sausage. Just kidding. We're actually going to be talking about Lamplighter. The 5th person is Lamplighter. But before we get into all of that, we have to talk about the boys in relation to 9/11. And somehow I don't really think this music in the background is gonna work anymore. Oh, no. That is very inappropriate. Okay, but we'll roll with that. Now, you may have noticed references here and there, but it's so much more infused into the fabric of the show than most realize. Of course, right off the bat, one of the most tragic events of the series is this botched attempt at foiling a hijacking resulting in countless deaths. Now, in the comic, this actually occurs specifically on 9/11. It is the singular tragedy of 9/11. The 7 are just hopelessly inept, which causes the plane to collide into the Brooklyn Bridge, giving us what the genius character of the legend, an amalgam of Stan Lee and the Watchers, long before the Guardians of the Galaxy ever made that connection. Anyhow, the legend calls this moment
the shot they love showing, but no New Yorker ever wants to see again.
Now, the entire series is constantly reminding us of this event. We get this foreshadowing of the plane disaster in episode 1, of course. After this tragedy, we hear Homelander lying and saying that
If NORAD called us before they scrambled jets, then we could have saved them.
Which was some snafu that occurred on 9/11. This part is feeling way too serious. Here's a cat. Anyhow, there are tons of George Bush-like quotes from Homelander.
Because I believe that what God wants me to do is get on over there and introduce it to a little thing called God's judgment.
Meanwhile, he's exporting Compound V across the world to create super terrorists in the hope of ginning up panic and support to gain government contracts. Now, this could easily be seen as how the Bush administration exacerbated threats to our safety and used outright lies to sell foreign wars on false pretenses.
Those weapons of mass destruction gotta be somewhere. Maybe under here.
But there's way more stuff than that, and it's often pretty subtle, so now I think we can cue the Billy Joel knockoff montage music. Alright, so in the background of this scene right here and here, we see covers from the original comic referencing the Brooklyn Bridge disaster. Take notice of the striking similarity to United Flight 93. One is also present right here at the Believe Expo. When Kimiko murders this Shining Light Liberation terrorist, he's looking at pictures of the Brooklyn Bridge surrounded by what seem to be bombs, a threat also alluded to here.
You saw that video. What if he does that to an airplane or fucking Brooklyn Bridge?
The Billy Joel video that Huey is watching in Season 2, Episode 3 is shot at the Queensboro Bridge. That's close enough. I doubt they had the budget to retroactively get Billy Joel to shoot it on the Brooklyn Bridge. Also, in this scene, where Butcher meets Mallory, it's at a wall of victims very reminiscent of those seen in Manhattan in the 9/11 aftermath. The films Vaught are shooting are packed with 9/11-like imagery in the documentary about Homelander's childhood. Why is that plane nosediving? That's not normal.
I can almost smell the silver paint.
The Church of the Collective, based loosely on Scientology, recruits discarded Vaught superheroes. Scientologists did that with firefighters and first responders of 9/11.
Would you like a fresco?
And now, if you will, please watch these speeches given by George Bush and Homelander side by side.
We mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you.
God bless you. God bless America.
We hear you, Homelander!
And I hear you, brother. I hear you.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And the world hears you.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
And very, very soon, my friend, whoever did this to us will hear from all of us.
Bush and Cheney had just returned to power, the Iraq bloodbath was boiling away, and Hurricane Katrina had devastated New Orleans. So I was writing about corporate corruption of government, abuse of power, and abandonment of ordinary people.
I'm contractually obligated to say that was refreshing and delightful. Anyhow, the 9/11 tragedy is just a specter that hangs over the entire series. In the same way that the Bush administration spun what was arguably a failure to respond to threats that they ignored into an excuse to enter foreign wars not associated with 9/11, Vought continually weaves altered versions of their own attacks, PR disasters, and colossal f***ups into their own narratives to elicit fear, paranoia, and to deceive the public into believing in fictitious enemies, traitors, and more. Both the Bush administration, conservatives in general, and Vought utilize religion and over-the-top nationalism to give the masses a false sense that everything's okay. They're the good guys. They're the real heroes.
Who's the real hero?
And finally, let's not kid ourselves, but it's pretty much the philosophy of American exceptionalism that Vought and the US use in order to achieve all of this. In both cases, it's basically just an excuse to be a shithead and not get called out for it. And that leads to really, really, really bad outcomes. Could go on, but all that is just a small taste of what the religion of American exceptionalism can get us into. At this point, I'm guessing you probably don't need me to tell you that Homelander is basically a psychopathic Superman with an obvious Oedipal complex, superiority complex, God complex, or maybe a Scott Stapp complex. I'm not exactly sure which. And I'm not here to tell you that there's a huge wealth of subtext to be found within a superhero in a long-flowing American flag cape who kills indiscriminately, nearly Bryn Starks his own son, and dry humps teeter-totters. The point is, with Homelander, we're just dealing with a lot of obvious. So I'm not here to make connections like this, outside of possibly making that connection at this particular moment in time. So some say that he has no weaknesses. A kryptonite, if you will. But yeah, he does. It's psychological. It's his psychotic need to be loved, adored, and worshipped.
This constant need to be loved by everyone is kind of pathetic, but yay!
Sure, words were never spoken by a superhuman f***ing Nazi. Sorry, I'm spoiling my spoilers there, but it is kind of pathetic, though, and
the religion of American exceptionalism
also demands that you have to love it, and it pretty much has to be a blind, unquestioning love. As I believe a young Dinesh D'Souza once said, you gotta love it all, or you totally suck shit. So through Homelander, we see this all come together in some interesting ways.
Hey, is that your secret identity?
Mm.
Yeah, I gave up on mine.
So this is pretty much Homelander 24/7. There is no Clark Kent-style alter ego, just this absurd caricature of American patriotism 24/7. And that makes sense.
Do you prefer saving America? Can I get a show of hands?
Okay, how about saving the world? Wow.
Nope, it's saving America. You show my photo to some illiterate f***ing camel jockey in the middle of the Sahara, he's gonna turn around and say, Homelander, imperfect American. It's Americans that are gonna keep us in the army, not the f***ing world. It's saving America. Mm-hmm.
Why does it make sense? Because is a fuck everybody else attitude. The world just revolves around America and by proxy Homelander. Remember, America is that
shining city upon a hill.
That's a reference to the Sermon on the Mount, by the way. America is touched by the grace of God, and in Homelander's mind, he isn't human, he's a god.
You and me. We're gods.
And in accordance with American exceptionalist interventionalist philosophy,
son, we can do anything we want, and no one can stop us.
But he's not just a god.
No, Stan. I am Vought.
So maybe in a sense, Homelander is also about corporate exceptionalism.
There is no democracy. There is only...
But in truth, he's none of those things. He's a man-baby who is practically addicted to drinking his boss's reserves of extracted breast milk. Gross.
See? You get disrespected over and over and over. That's what happens.
That pretty much sums up his fragility. At the end of season 2, what stops Homelander isn't the idea of physical retaliation for his worst deeds going public.
If you do that, I'll destroy everything and everyone.
It's just realizing that no one will love him anymore.
As long as everyone sees what a monster you are. As long as no one ever loves you again.
So in the end, Homelander is kind of American exceptionalism personified. He demands both blind faith and love from everyone, plays by rules he won't accept from anyone, suffers from delusions of grandeur, and just like any myth, American exceptionalism and Homelander are powerless without believers to feed them. So yeah, that's most of Homelander. Of course, he also begs the question, why does Superman even bother punching people when he can just eviscerate them with his heat vision all the time? And can Homelander rebuild the Great Wall of China with his eye lasers? These are questions. I'm thinking they'll get to it in season 3.
God bless America.
I'm just hanging with my homie Trumpy here.
I am an Army veteran. I am proud to own the Trumpy bear, and I will always be proud to be an American.
And right now, he's going to chug this mouth-watering bottle of Budweiser. Yeah, king of beers. Yep, that's beer royalty right there. Drink it up, Trumpy. It's f***ing delicious. So real quick, all of this glorious merch that you see before you is not going to be available for very long. We'll be kicking it the f*** off Teespring, and everything is 20% off through 2020 with the coupon code HeyIt'sVadim 2020. Again, most of this awesomeness will just vanish off this hellscape we call Earth in 2021. And that's because we're doing it from tomorrow and every day forward. This channel's name will now be HeyIt'sVadim. So, anyhow, Starlight. We know that as a child, she took part in Little Miss Hero pageants. Beauty pageants in general have historically been basically a factory that churns out American exceptionalists that know their place. When she says that she wants
to save the world, that's all I have ever wanted.
She's of course completely genuine, but that's just not gonna happen because that's just not what Vought is. She's been indoctrinated into a naive apple pie vision of the system, and in reality it's all more like, I don't know, this disgusting slice of decomposing apple pie that's growing a mold beard. So although her disillusionment is rapid, she realizes she's now a product to hawk things like oil-free face wash and totally not disturbing at all ads, and knows nearly every mission are just photo ops for Vaught's propaganda machine. Her disillusionment isn't fully complete until she discovers that she wasn't chosen by God to be a soup, she was manufactured by Compound V.
Now
What are you talking about? We're born like this.
I'm so sorry. Annie.
Okay, guys, see that shot in the chest there? Of course you do. That right there, that's some good writing, because it perfectly accentuates the gut punch that she just received. Her entire worldview just came crashing in on her. She's not special. Nearly everyone from Vought to her mother have been lying to her entire life, and if God exists at all, he's probably just some huge dick for creating a world in which this could happen.
You made me think that I was chosen by God.
You were! God brought Vought into our lives. He made this possible.
Bullshit!
She was indoctrinated into a myth that was an essential aspect of her being. So when she peels back the curtain exposing the dark, moldy, beard hair covered underbelly, it just wrecks her. She doesn't know who she is without it.
No wonder I don't know who the I'm supposed to be. Annie.
Both Annie and Huey go through this, and fortunately they only grow stronger as a result. But simply put, both represent the masses who 100% buy into the American exceptionalist ideal and then tear off that gift wrap to realize that what's inside is just a hunk of rancid mother donkey shit. Sorry, I was just trying to heat this six-pack up a little. So, I think these guys are basically two sides of the same coin, also arguably the two most tragic characters on the series, so we're going to discuss their stories together. And guys, this is about to get way more intense than I typically get, so just to ease you into it. So, Kamiko. Kidnapped by the Shining Light Liberation Army, turned into a mercenary by the group that killed her family, subjected to experiments with Compound V supplied by Vought, transforming her into a spontaneously violent, rage-fueled assassin. She longs for a home that she can never return to, because as her long-lost brother informs her,
ヒーローが悪魔みたいな声でやってきた。キャンプもその周りの全ての村も破壊した。
99.9% sure that's Homelander. If he had mentioned something about him dry-humping teeter-totters, we'd know for sure. So a couple of things. Because the Shining Light Liberation Army is aided by Vought with doses of Compound V, obviously they're not much different than what some would argue are a long list of terrorist groups or despotic regimes that America has backed and given arms to achieve US goals.
Those charges are utterly false.
I'd also like to point out that not just Kamiko, but all of the experimentation performed on the soups bears at least a faint similarity to the Tuskegee experiments, in which hundreds of African Americans were unknowingly injected with syphilis for long-term studies.
We don't just love America, we're in love with America.
どうでもいいのか。スーパーヒーローがバーサの真っ二つにしたんだぞ。子供ごと学校が潰されたのも、ガス爆発でゆりかごの赤ん坊が焼かれたのも。
So, Kamiko is the fury of every foreigner that's ever been exploited or victimized by the US personified. She is the rage of Hiroshima, the countless outraged Iraqis radicalized into terrorism by the tortures at Abu Ghraib, or just fill in the horrific thing that probably qualifies as a war crime here. Now, Lamplighter's story is, to a certain extent, the flip side. So, although he doesn't officially show up until late in the second season, his presence is there from the top.
After a long, distinguished career with Seven, my good friend the Lamplighter has retired. Let's give him a big thank you. What do you say?
We have no clue who he is. He's mentioned here and there, but it's very easy to miss. He's just hanging in the background of nearly every episode in statues, posters, Cuddle Buddies, and more. And yes, Cuddle Buddies is spelled with a K, so please don't correct me in the comments. It's really annoying. And finally, he's also in this Avengers Age of Ultron-like statue until his removal at the top of season 2. So why am I going through all this trouble to point out what seem like throwaway details? Well, before we discover his identity, this is pretty much all we see.
Look, he's just a kid. 17 years old, you don't gotta look him in the face.
Look, no one's ever achieved anything without sacrifice. The kid's a hero. Think of it like that.
Right. A hero.
So, arguably, outside of the titty committee lighter, he seems kind of like a throwaway character, right? Well, that's by design. Take a look at this rundown pack and go. It's a blink and you miss it detail at the top of season 1, and it's just a perfect summary of where he's at as a character and what he now means to Vought. This is all just PR. He's nothing to them, because we soon learn this is actually Lamplighter. And sure, he is a member of the Titty Committee now, but he's definitely not leading the fabulous life he used to. He's relegated to working as an orderly at a top-secret soup testing facility and forced to incinerate human experiments gone wrong. That's the 17-year-old hero that they were talking about, by the way. Now, the memory of burn victims on the battlefield is an extremely common war-related trauma that soldiers often endure.
You know what crispy critter was? Those are the bodies that were burnt by the napalm that was dropped by the Air Force. And we used to have to stack them and count them and take pictures of them.
Welcome to Vietnam.
We also learn that he's responsible for the murder of innocent children, but he soon reveals that
I didn't know!
And of course, grappling with the unintentional killing of innocents is yet another tragic reality of war that often provokes PTSD.
Do it. You'd be doing me a favor. Do it.
He cries over disappointing his father while watching Homelander cuck porn.
Come on, man, stop. It's not cool.
Snowflake cuck.
Don't judge. He's in a bad place, and all he ever wanted to be was a hero.
I was gonna do great things. Almost did. Now look at me.
But then he gets one more shot.
This is your last chance to be a hero again.
And then finally, when they break into Vought headquarters, in what is just a long line of humiliations, he realizes that
they moved my statue.
And then we realize that he's been planning to do this. Now look, obviously, straight up, that's just a horrible thing to do. Please don't ever. But I do wonder, in his severely depressed PTSD-addled mind, if that's in fact a form of protest. I mean, he knows.
Vought screwed you over, right?
And then of course there's also this.
Look, no one's ever achieved anything without sacrifice. The kid's a hero.
Right. A hero.
Which makes that scene make sense. It's all oddly fitting. And on top of all of that, self-immolation is known as pretty much the most horrific form of protest there is. So regardless of how you look at it, Lamplighter's story is that of a psychologically wounded army veteran who has been discarded by the system he was once eager to fight for. There's countless human stories like these, and it's so often over-the-top patriotism, nationalism, and that allows so many to turn a blind eye to it all. They both represent the very worst consequences of the apathy, mistreatment, and abuse that the US is responsible for, both home and abroad.
That's right, Trumpy. You just get nice and hammered so you don't have to think about the bleak horrors of the world. Chug, 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 chug!
They want to wipe us from this earth just because of the color of our skin. Really? It's called white genocide.
Okay, so as I said earlier, yes, Stormfront is indeed a fucking Nazi. And by that, I mean she's literally a good old-fashioned 100-year-old German-born and bred fucking Nazi. At some points, she's even a fucking Nazi. And honestly, I feel like a huge idiot for not picking up on it sooner. I mean, there are tells, the lightning bolt SS earrings, Stormfront being a notorious Nazi internet forum, her belt, yes, that is Nazi garb, and her hair is literally Hitler's, who's also a Nazi, by the way, but just longer. I mean, look at this really horrible Photoshop I did as a comparison. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong Hitler. Yeah, see what I'm talking about? Now, I'm still a huge idiot, but to my very slight credit, they did do an excellent job of misdirecting the character.
The world loves Hamilton!
Excuse me! I'm sorry to interrupt
No, of course.
this love fest. You write all women as either unknowable Hitchcock bitches or Michael Bay dolls?
So she kind of comes off as a feisty SJW type there, right? Well, not a coincidence.
We sort of intentionally misdirected her at the beginning for the frankly disturbing reason that if you look at a lot of nationalism and white supremacy these days, it's online. A lot of hate and negative thought these days, if you look online, is packaged in really slick, social media attractive ways. It's not like the old dudes with crew cuts in the 1960s newsreels anymore.
Anyhow, when we really first start catching on to all of this is when we discover her former alias is Liberty. We learn that she's responsible for some vicious hate crimes back in the early 70s. Now, just for fun, let's take a look at this old ad, because knowing the show, there has to be some hits here too. Well, right off the bat, the name Liberty could be referencing the Liberty Lobby, which was a 250,000 strong neo-Nazi group that donated generously to Republicans in the 60s and 70s. But let's take another look. Wait a second, Budweiser? Budweiser. Liberty. Where there's liberty, there's Budweiser. How deep does this rabbit hole go? Budweiser was first brewed in Germany. Anheuser's first name was Eberhard, and there's 6 famous Nazis with that name. And Bush's first name was Adolf. No, hold on. It all makes sense. The Budweiser frogs, they're Pepe's. Spuds McKenzie, Spuds McNazi. That's why he's giving a Heil Hitler there. This says Budweiser brought bottled beer to the masses. Hitler brought genocide to the masses. Oh my God! I've been drinking Nazi juice! So we have a new sponsor here today, folks. Fresca, which has no Nazi ties whatsoever that I'm aware of. Anyhow, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah! So, Stormfront is basically a very effective analogy for how hate groups repackage themselves.
Change with the times. God knows I did.
Into slicker versions of the same old hateful bullshit. She's a superhuman, fascist Nazi motherfucker playbook come to life. She's got her meme game down tight.
When you see it on your uncle's Facebook page, then you know it's working.
She knows how to manipulate her base.
Emotion sells. Anger sells.
And achieves this by tapping into primal yet completely unfounded fears.
Has there ever been anyone in history more persecuted just for trying to protect their own?
Jews don't replace her. She replaces superhuman Jews. And just like any fascist worth their weight in Pepe Bitcoin, she could go from stirring faux populist anger at the status quo one moment.
Vought wants you to feel calm and safe so that you continue to buy their shitty toys and drinking their shitty energy drinks and going to see their shitty movie.
And then go straight into stoking fear and paranoia the next.
But maybe we shouldn't feel so calm or safe. These maniacs could already have flown over our borders just waiting for their chance to kill us all.
It's all very fascism.
Is the new punk rock.
So really I'd say her relevance to American exceptionalism is in exposing and mirroring both the ways in which divisive, hateful, and fashy tendencies can both deceive and intoxicate the masses. How they can seem harmless, fun, edgy, sexy, and how many will just shut the fuck up and buy all that garbage so long as it's sold to them under the guise of patriotism.
That Nazi bitch.
Oh shit. Sorry, I was just trying to heat this flag up a little. So, guys, look, I don't hate America. That's not what this video is about. I actually love America, just on my own terms, you know, for things like rock and roll, New York City, David Lynch movies, Nina Simone, barbecue, beer, and freedom. Okay, maybe not that last one. This is all just off the top of my head, guys, so there's probably at least 2 or 3 more examples that I'm not thinking of. But on the boys, the masses love America and soups on the terms that are dictated to them by Vought. I mean, this is a world in which the people don't even bother to question the fact that literally every superhero was just born and bred in America. That's weird. And by the way, are you sick of superheroes, or do you just hate them? It's pretty natural to be burnt out on superheroes these days, especially with political ads like this.
Control, what's the situation at the LZ?
Good evening, sir. We do have a small problem at the landing zone. Anti-fascists are patrolling the area.
Okay, first of all, what the f***? Second of all, what is even reality anymore? How can we fix it? Or can I find some way to escape? And third of all, dude, those guys were just sitting in a car. Yes, that was a real political ad. And by the way, this is the opening dialogue.
The American story is one of true exceptionalism.
So I personally don't hate superheroes. My ancestors were nerds. It's just not in my DNA. But if you do, you're not alone. The creator of The Boys definitely agrees with you. And I have to admit, he makes a pretty great point right here.
There's apparently no end in sight to the saturation of film and TV by superheroes. They seem to be the perfect fantasy of hope and empowerment for a world that increasingly lacks either.
Personally, not having grown up with superheroes, I find them completely moronic.
I don't know, maybe I'm stupid. Am I stupid, Eve?
Ow. And to me, that's definitely the most powerful message of The Boys. Not so much the whole superheroes being moronic thing.
They seem to be the perfect fantasy of hope and empowerment for a world that increasingly lacks either.
That. Because dogmatic, unquestioning patriotism vicariously gives others a false sense of greatness.
Oh, and you guys. You are the real heroes.
But we all know who the real heroes of this group are, right? So let's give them all a hand.
Captain, you guys are the real heroes.
Hey, do me a favor. Who's the real heroes? You are. You guys are the real heroes. God bless you.
All right. You fucking cocksuckers.
But you know what? There are real heroes in this world. They're everyday, ordinary people just like you and... No, not me. I'm just some fucking asshole. But the real heroes are my patrons on Patreon. And you can see the names of my premium patrons just scrolling by. There they go. There they go. And you too can join them and bravely make sure that I don't have to suck a whole bunch of fucking at truck stops for cheeseburgers. And more importantly, you can help make these videos better and better and better here at HeyIt'sVadim.
Amazing!
I put Trumpy Bear in a Captain America suit. I painted my nails red, white, and blue. I turned my room into, I don't know, the inside of a wizard's bong. Just for you. Just for you. Okay, look, I get it. Times are tough. 2020 sucks ass, so just do what you can, even if it's just a thumbs up, a comment, or one of these. We also have a PayPal that you can make a one-time donation to. That would be awesome. And hey, don't forget about this. We're extending it through January.
Amazing!
Guys, it's a brand new era. Good night. Hug your f***ing cats. And I love you.